Many salutations to viewers and coins of the vault alike. Thanks for stopping by and checking out this chapter and part. Don't forget to check out the description below for the open casting call that I will be holding for the duration of this story. In it, there will be a list of characters as well as a few lines that you can use for auditions. Some of these characters will have one-time appearances, others will be making appearances throughout the story and have yet to have a voice behind them. But we'll see. So until next time, my friends. Sly Cooper, Rise of Vexen. Chapter 2, Part 1.
Did you really have to jeopardize this entire trip for a bag of donuts?
Vexen roared, punching Murray in the shoulder as hard as she could.
I'm sorry, Vex. I was hungry and I wasn't able to have my afternoon fruit,
Murray argued, tossing another of the confections down his throat. Vexen pinched the bridge of her nose and closed her eyes. After traveling for 4 days, these two buffoons were beginning to wear on her.
How did Cooper ever put up with you two?
She huffed, rubbing her eyes to stay the dull ache of her head.
We're family, Vexen,
Bentley called, still reminding himself to use her chosen alias, which she had thought of during the trip.
In the last 13 hours, we've broken nearly 365 international laws. How can I...
Vexen stopped her rant, realizing that she had broken quite a few laws herself, helping to steal food, supplies, clothes, resisting arrest, impersonating officers, even lifting the occasional wallet, though she always managed to return the wallets in short order afterward.
Sorry, guys. The last few days have been difficult for me.
She huffed, putting a hand over her eyes and leaning over in the seat when she felt Bentley's hand on her shoulder.
Don't worry, Vexen. We're in this together, and we'll help you all the way,
he said. But as Bentley spoke, he thought he could see her lip quivering just under her hand as she tried to cover her face.
What's the matter?
Bentley asked, turning her seat around and taking her hand down to wipe away the tears welling up in her eyes.
I can just hear my father's voice now, saying how disappointed he is in becoming what he fought against. What I fought against. And now I'm one of them. How could I even face my father's grave again?
She whimpered, quickly wiping her tears away to try and regain her rigid composure. Bentley was about to speak when something flashed across the van's windshield. Murray jerked the wheel in response, carefully straightening out the van on the icy roads.
What's the matter?
Vexen asked, readying for a fight.
I didn't see it. It just came and went,
Murray answered.
Murray, stop!
Murray slammed on the brakes, trying to keep the van in control, sliding towards the figure dressed in white. All three of them braced for the impact that was sure to come until the van's tires found some grip and came to an abrupt halt.
Did we hit him?
Bentley asked, pulling himself upright in his chair and spinning his hat the right direction.
I think you mean her.
Vexen pointed out, looking up to better look at the tall, fit figure standing before them.
How can you tell that's a she?
Murray asked. Vexen looked over at Murray hard, slowly reaching into her back pocket and pulling out Ivan's card as she stepped out. The one standing before the van watched her every move with a piercing red gaze, the shadow of her parka hood obscuring her face.
I was told by a friend to come here and see you,
Vexen said, holding out the card. The woman snatched the card from Vexen's grip and looked at the front of it.
This has the seal of the great dragon thief Ryu. Are you a friend of his?
She asked with a German accent, her tail waving behind her slightly.
in a manner of speaking. We were directed here.
The woman held her finger to her lips before rushing Vexen, grabbing her and running into a nearby alley. Murray instantly followed, but came to another abrupt halt when the girl held up her hand and thumped the corner of the hood with her fist, shutting off the van. Murray tried to restart it, but was quickly met by the girl drawing her hand across her neck. Vexen struggled to get free when her ears perked up, hearing what sounded like guards. They spoke in German, but Vexen could tell they seemed agitated and looking for something. Or someone. When the guards seemed out of earshot, the girl let Vexen go, who let out a sigh of relief.
What do you think you're doing?
Vexen seethed.
I'm sorry for not introducing myself, but the guards here don't take too kindly to strangers walking around without the proper clearance. Come, we must get you out of this cold,
she said, waving her hand for them to follow. Vexen's heart quickened as she followed, her fingers and arms tingling. Something felt wrong, but she followed after the woman in white. Murray finally started the van and followed. The four of them stepped into an old warehouse where the girl pulled the door down and turned on the dim lights.
And now you may speak freely without the guards hearing. Why are you here?
She asked, taking on a much more aggressive stance as some kind of bladed weapon silently appeared in her hand.
We're following a lead in search of something. Ryu said you would find us once we were in the area, and to show you that card when you did.
Vexen answered, keeping an eye on the woman's left hand.
And how do I know that you aren't here to trick me? You could have forged that card.
She asked, lowering her stance as though ready to charge.
I didn't, and I'm not. I'm simply following clues that led me here to this point found by my friend.
Vexen answered, pointing to the back of the van when Bentley pushed open the door, looked around, and adjusted his glasses a bit.
Bentley? Is that you?
The girl asked, standing to her full height and sheathing the weapon.
I'm not really sure how you know me, but if you could step into the light...
It's me, Adora!
She said, pulling her hood back to reveal an albino red panda.
Adora? What in the world?
Bentley's sentence was cut off as she ran to him, picking him up out of his chair and hugging him tightly.
Oh, it has been far too long since I saw you last. Where is that Sly Cooper you told Jing and me so much about?
She said, holding him at arm's length before setting him back in his chair.
That's kinda why we're here, Adora. You see, he went missing after a long battle with a skunk named the Paradox. That stinker tried to erase Sly altogether and make himself the king of thieves. But now we think we have a clue that will lead us to Sly.
And what clue brought you to this part of the world?
She asked when Vexen interrupted.
Hold on one damn moment. You know this Amazonian?
Vexen asked, motioning up and down her tall figure. Bentley smiled and pushed up his glasses before answering.
Actually, yes. For much longer than you think. It was after the Dr. M incident when Sly faked his lost memories. After Sly had taken up living with you, Murray and I made sure to visit the Panda King from time to time to check up on Jing, and sometimes Adora would be there. She's Jing's cousin.
He answered as the panda put a hand on her hip and pulled her lips to the side.
So you must be the Carmelita that I have heard so much about. I didn't recognize you with those clothes you are wearing.
Adora said as she took a slight bow to her.
But what is it that brings you here? For certain it can't be the many snowstorms.
Vexen smiled under her mask, pulling it off and relaxing a bit once she knew that Adora wasn't going to be a problem.
I'm actually going by the name of Vexen since I'm trying to break into the thief circuit.
An interesting name, but becoming a thief is such a big change for you.
Adora answered when Bentley spoke up.
We actually came here following a lead on Sly. As I said before, he's been missing ever since the Paradox incident 3 years ago.
Adora raised an eyebrow, interested in their adventure and where it might take them.
Oh, and what kind of lead did you find?
She asked as Bentley brought up a holographic atomic structure and a picture of some metal shavings next to it.
This. It's some kind of dense alloy. Ryu directed us here to talk to you, saying that he had done some work with you some time ago.
Adora took a closer look at the atomic makeup, rubbing her chin as she looked over each of the elements used.
I know this metal. It's called Damascus steel. It was said to be a lost alloy from many years ago. During World War II, there were many places researching different metals for the U-boats to make them stronger.
Vexen lowered her brow, cradling her chin and trying to figure out why Hunter had Damascus steel shavings on his hands. She had heard of the supposed fictional alloy before, but never imagined it was real.
Tell me, Miss Adora, how do you come to know Ryu? And how is it that I've never heard of you before?
Vexen asked.
Those are questions better left unasked for the moment, Miss Vexen. As you are no doubt aware, you are still new to this world of thieves, and have yet to make a credible name for yourself.
Vexen clenched her jaw but nodded. She wanted answers, but they weren't coming as quickly as she hoped. She felt like a first-year cadet again.
All right, fine. Can you at least help us get to a safe house? I want to find out who's been making this stuff and what it has to do with Cooper.
Vexen asked with a huff. Adora nodded and beckoned them to follow her to an old factory's main office. It was situated on the edge of an alley overlooking the harbor and some old factories that were still working, belching dark clouds of smoke into the air.
That's odd,
Vexen thought, helping Bentley and Murray bring in some technical equipment for their stay.
While you are here, could I trouble you to help me with something?
Adora asked. Vexen was getting ready to turn her down, but then remembered her time with Sly. He would get the things he needed by helping others with their problems first, or finding what he needed while helping.
Sure, what do you need?
Vexen asked, setting down a box and leaning against a wall to listen. Adora reached into her sleeve and pulled out a weathered picture of a kind but robust-looking red panda.
My father, Merdot, was taken by the forces that have recently come, forcing him to work in one of the many factories they restarted. I don't know where he is, or if he is still alive, but in either case, I would like your help in finding him.
Vexen took the picture, feeling a tiny sting in her own heart, remembering how for weeks after her father's death, she would have given anything to have him back just one more day. She handed the picture back with a careful wipe of her eye and further agreed to her request. Bentley called out to them as he cracked open one of his many laptops.
I'll be setting up our equipment here with Murray. Why don't you and Adora go and scout out the surrounding area?
He suggested, holding out one of Sly's old binoculars. Vexen huffed and took it, strapping it to the side of her belt as she and Adora climbed to the rooftops, where there was less chance of being spotted by ground guards. After a few minutes, Bentley's voice came over the small communicator in Vexen's ear.
Bentley to Vexen, can you hear me?
Vexen skidded to a stop on an icy roof and pressed her finger to her ear.
I read you, Bentley. What's your status?
She asked, watching Adora as she stepped to the edge of the building and looked down at the street.
I've just got the comm system running at the moment, but I should have the rest of the equipment set up shortly. Grab your binocular and show me what you see.
Vexen made sure that she had a sound footing before grabbing the device and holding it to her eyes, pressing a button on the top and activating the systems within it.
All right, from this vantage point, I can make out 3 spots that should be good places to start checking out. That factory to the west seems to be making the most smoke, so it could be where they are doing the most work, whoever they are,
Bentley stated. Vexen panned to another spot where a group of guards were standing in front of the building.
What about them? I don't think that would be that easy to take care of.
Vexen said, jumping back when Adora filled her field of vision and dropped the device.
What is that you have there?
She asked, kneeling down to pick up the binocular, then looked through it.
This is nothing more than a glorified pair of binoculars. The resolution is mediocre at best, and the zoom is only 15 times at most. This will not do. A pair of these is what you need,
Adora said, reaching into a pocket on her suit and producing a pair of sleek, red-framed shades. Vexen took them, but looked up at Adora with a disappointed look on her face.
You don't trust me?
Adora asked, holding up the binocular.
It's not that I don't trust you, but the binocular was Sly's. It's one of the only few things I have left of him.
She answered. Adora nodded, handing the binocular back to her, putting a hand on her shoulder.
I understand. But if you are to make your own mark, you need to move on to what makes you, different.
Vexen nodded, putting on the shades and finding that the tinting helped clear away the foggy air from the snow. From one of the arms, a small earbud sprung up and slotted into her ear, allowing her to hear Bentley's panicked voice once again.
Vexen, what's going on? Are you all right?
Bentley called. Vexen smiled and pushed her finger into her ear, cueing her mic.
Everything's fine, Bentley.
Vexen answered when her glasses cued on. Digital readouts appeared all around the edges of her vision, ranging from target distance, temperature, GPS positioning with both horizontal and vertical readouts, and a small picture with a 5x zoom in the upper left corner.
What did you do, Vexen? What am I looking at?
Bentley said worriedly, another small picture appearing in the upper right corner, showing Bentley madly typing away on his computer.
I didn't do anything.
Vexen answered as Adora smiled and slipped on her own white-rimmed shades and pressed the side of the arm.
Don't worry, Bentley. I gave Vexen a spare set of my own personal shade scanner. My set found an unrecognized signal and tracked it to the binocular. It is now synced with your signal and will transmit all the data that you see.
Adora explained, while Vexen read over the amount of data displayed to her.
I know a way to get around those soldiers.
Adora smirked, jumping from the roof, grabbing onto a nearby drain, and sliding to the ground. Vexen followed close behind, keeping a close eye on the guards as the two of them snuck to a manhole cover. Adora picked it up and motioned to go in. The smell often accompanying sewers made Vexen hesitate, but she needed to get into that factory. Taking a breath, Vexen jumped in. To her surprise, the giant pipe was dry and the air was just as clean as above ground. Adora joined her soon after, the two of them winding through the underground drains until Adora pointed up to another cover. From above, both of them could hear the sounds of machinery thrumming. Vexen clambered up the ladder and peeked in. As she scanned the room, the data in her shades locked onto pieces of equipment, zooming in to specific areas that Vexen would stare at for a short time. When she was sure no one was around, she slipped out of the drain and disappeared into the shadows. As she thought of her next move, Bentley's voice crackled over the headset.
Vexen, can you read me?
She flinched from the loud volume and pulled the earbud out, hoping that no one heard the static-filled transmission.
Okay, Bentley, I hear you.
She answered after putting the bud back into her ear.
Don't scare me like that, Vex. I lost your signal for a good 10 minutes.
Bentley almost shouted.
Adora showed me an underground entrance into the factory, but I have no idea what I'm supposed to be looking for.
Well, we're looking for anything that shows the location of Adora's father, and who's making this Damascus steel. Try looking for an office of some kind. That may be where the worker files may be kept.
Vexen stepped from the shadows to begin her search. Strangely, no personnel was seen interacting with any of the devices.